to the show. Over the weekend, hockey fans waited anxiously to see what players on their team would be protected and who would be left unprotected. Well, here's a look at some notable forwards available for the Seattle Kraken in their expansion draft this coming Wednesday. Some big names on this list, needless to say. So, Johnny, when you look at this list, who do you find intriguing on this list? Who pops off the page?
Well, intriguing is going to be the operative word. I'm not saying Seattle has to pick, but Matt Duchene. Think about where his career has gone when he was Colorado, then into Ottawa, had a great run, put up a ton of points, went to Columbus, then he went to Nashville, and he wanted to be in Nashville. It seemed like a great fit, good organization, and it just hasn't worked for him. Now, it would be a big risk, a lot of money, a lot of term, but if you could ever catch lightning in a bottle and get him back to the player he was a couple years ago, you might have your number one center locked in for a long, long time. It's amazing just to kind of see how quickly it's gotten away from him. I wonder if he could get it back just as quickly, EJ.
Yeah, he's certainly an interesting person to be up there. And I think in this era of flat cap and teams looking to save money and things haven't gone well, you see guys up on that list that are making a lot of money, and the teams are almost saying, well, if you really want to take
this money off the books for me, I won't be too upset about it.
Go right ahead. So, I could definitely see that. The one guy that I looked at, and it's really like a group of guys, really, right? The Tampa Bay Lightning had some big decisions to make, as we knew. They decided to protect all the four defensemen. So that allowed them only to protect four forwards. So now they have a bunch of really high-end forwards. You saw some of them on that board we showed with Andre Palat, for example. But the guy that's intriguing to me is Yanni Gourde, because we just watched what happened in the playoffs, and he was such an important player. I think he's still, Johnny, I think he's still young enough. And he was an undrafted player, so maybe there aren't as many hard miles on him earlier in his career. Certainly the last 2 years there are. But you know exactly what he is. He's an energy player. He's one of those guys that fans really like. I'll be very curious to see what Seattle does when they look at the Tampa list, or if there have been any side deals that are made. Then we would find that out on Wednesday. But for me, Yanni Gourde is an interesting guy because, boy, he's someone I'd like to have on my team.
And after watching, I don't know if you guys saw the John Cooper commercial. It wasn't a commercial. It was part of the Quest for the Cup, where he had the cigar, time for the 3P. I'm like, well, you're going to be missing a couple important pieces, Coop. We'll see how that journey goes next year. On the blue line, Mark Giordano got a lot of attention on social media when these lists came out. Johnny, what do you make of the situation surrounding him and the fact that he is available?
Well, I don't think he falls into the category like a Matt Duchene or like a Tarasenko, like a high-priced guy where teams would be willing to let him go just because you're going to clear some cap space and whatever happens, happens. I think Calgary wants to keep Mark Giordano. They just couldn't make the numbers work. They couldn't work out the side deals. The ask was too high for a guy who's got 1 year left in his contract. But he's the captain. And he won the Norris just a couple years ago. And yes, I know it's maybe hasn't gone quite as well. Maybe he's getting a little bit older for sure. But I still think he sets the tone on the ice, off the ice. And if I'm Vegas, or if I'm Seattle, I'm absolutely going after Giordano, even if it's just for a year, even if it's just for half a year as a rental, EJ. I just think he would be bringing such leadership and professionalism to a team where a whole bunch of guys don't know each other. I don't think Calgary wants to lose him, but I think they're going to.
Yeah, I would take him, too, just because you take him with the idea that you see what the market is like for Mark Giordano. Maybe someone wants to do a deal with you to acquire him, or, like you say, worst case scenario, he's on your team. He's a really rock solid pro to have in that room to go forward in your first season. So
yeah, you talk about leadership and some of those qualities that he would bring to a team of just a bunch of random guys from all over the place. Playing together could be a good guy to have in the room in terms of the intangible things that he brings.
Absolutely.
Who else would you want to point out on the blue line?
Well, one guy I would look at, I'm interested in, is Jake Bean, because I don't think Carolina really wants to expose him, but they have an embarrassment of riches with the number of defensemen they have. And, you know, Jake Bean was a first-round pick, 13th overall in 2016, when a fellow by the name of Ron Francis was the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. He was also the GM, by the way, when Hayden Fleury was drafted in the first round by the Carolina Hurricanes as well. So he's on the Anaheim list. Bean is on the Carolina list. So, Johnny, I'll be curious because Jake Bean was moving up in that lineup, it seemed like, this year for Carolina. I don't think they want to lose him, but I get a sense they are going to.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're going to lose him. They don't want to, but this is what happens. You have too many good players. But I do like the fact that teams aren't, so far, going out of their way to make all these side deals and give up futures and prospects to protect their one individual player that they might have to lose. That is different than what happened with Vegas so far.
Did we bury the lead? I think we buried the lead. Let's get to the goalies, the attendees, fresh off of a trip to the Stanley Cup Final. Best believe it, that's not a typo. Carrie Price has been left exposed by the Montreal Canadiens. He waives his no movement clause as part of that decision for Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens. Habs fans spinning a little bit nervous. There's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantee that the Seattle Kraken do not take Carrie Price. Johnny, what would you tell Habs fans right now about the fact that their number one netminder could be stolen?
How much time do we have? I've been chewing on this one for days now because trying to make sense of it. What is Montreal's motivation? What is Carrie Price's motivation? Why would they get themselves in this situation? I'll only say this. It's not about working out a side deal to have both goalies back next year. Because if that was the case, you protect Carrie, you expose Jake Allen, and work out the side deal for him. This is Marc Bergevin saying, we like you, but if we lose the cap hit at 33 for 5 more years, we're okay with that. And maybe as surprising, or maybe not, Carrie Price saying back to Montreal, I want to come back, and I'm happy to partner up with Jake Allen, and we just made it to the Stanley Cup Final. But I'm willing to go to Seattle, which is he's from British Columbia, his wife's from the Pacific Northwest as well. He played junior out there. There are some family ties there. And we've been joking for a couple of years, Jackie. Seattle comes in, Carrie Price could go there. That might make sense. And maybe that is his allure. The fact that both parties are okay with him leaving or staying is such a peculiar situation just a few days after they made the Stanley Cup Final, in large part because Carrie Price was awesome, especially in the first 3 rounds. I think fans are as confused as I am by it, and I don't think people are sure what the ideal outcome should be if you're a Montreal fan. Is it better to lose Carrie Price and the cap hit, or have him be excellent for the next couple of years, but maybe he ages out of that contract? I don't know, EJ. It is a head-scratcher. I don't think there's any side deals right now, and I haven't even touched on the fact that he might be going in for some knee surgery, hip surgery, whatever it might be, and how healthy he might be next year. I don't think he gets taken, but man, is it interesting when it involves Carrie Price and the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. The sense I get is that they tried to work out a side deal for Jake Allen, and that Marc Bergevin did not necessarily like the price, so to use a word. And so in the end, he's banking on, at least we think, he's banking on the idea that Seattle will not go after a guy at that price, at that age, and with some potential injury issues. So we will see what Seattle decides to do. I'm with you. I don't think they're going to select him. There's another guy, though, that's similar in some ways down in Dallas, Ben Bishop, and his contract is for half the amount and for less than half the term. He's only got 2 years left. And that's somebody that we look at and say, would Seattle take a run at Ben Bishop and have him as part of their group? And, again, acquire him, maybe to move him to somebody who needs a goalie. Goaltenders, there's a value for goaltenders in the marketplace right now. You can see right here.
Bit of a mystery, though, Ben Bishop. What are you getting?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of issues with Ben Bishop, but you've got to feel that he hasn't played in a while. You have to think he's getting close to being healthy. He almost played at the end of last season, if we remember.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that you can see the numbers. Is a very talented goaltender. The number is very reasonable at $4.92 million for 2 seasons. If you can get him back playing, maybe you keep him, maybe you flip him. We'll see. But it's interesting because there's a number of interesting goalie options on the market. And I'll be curious to see how many goalies they take. My recollection tells me that Vegas took 3 goalies through the draft process. I'll be curious to see if Seattle takes 1 or 2 more just because maybe they feel they can move them and bring in some further assets.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I can hardly wait for this draft.
It's fun.
I mean, I wish it was tonight. I'm going to be like a kid before Christmas.
Yeah.